For more, let's bring in Fox News contributor and former CIA station chief Dan Hoffman. Dan, welcome.
Thanks, Mike. Good to see you.
Well, let's start with Prime Minister Netanyahu on Gaza. I want to play this clip and I'll get you to react.
We don't want to govern it. We don't want to be there as a governing body. We want to hand it over to Arab forces that will govern it properly without threatening us and giving Gazans a good life. That's not possible with Hamas. The only way that you're going to have a different future is to get rid of this neo-Nazi army. The Hamas are monsters.
The Prime Minister has taken some heat from folks in Israel. You see a pretty large protest live on the screen right now. And there's also taken some heat from some allies about this Gaza City plan. What is your assessment, Dan?
Well, I think Israel is fighting a just war against Hamas terrorists, but the challenge that Israel faces is that this is an insurgency. They may win all the battles in Gaza, but Hamas is winning the war. They're gaining sympathy from Great Britain and France, which is they're both talking about recognizing a Palestinian state. That's a victory for Hamas. The more suffering that takes place in Gaza, the better for Hamas. That's the way that they are happy to treat their own civilian population. And so for Israel, they really need to outline what their post-conflict reconstruction plan is. What's their counterinsurgency strategy? I learned about that firsthand when I served in Iraq with David Petraeus. Israel needs to drive a wedge between irreconcilable Hamas terrorists and the civilian population. They're not doing that. Gaza is uninhabitable, and so Israel needs to do a better job of dealing with the humanitarian catastrophe there. And they need to involve Arab neighbors, and that's something I think we can help with. But right now, a real strategy is lacking, and that's the concern, I think, that we have in the United States.
President Trump and Vladimir Putin are due to meet Friday in Alaska. The president spoke about it yesterday. Let's play that.
We have a shot at it. Look, it's got to be solved. A lot of people say, why are you bothering? We're not losing people. We were spending hundreds of billions of dollars. Now we're spending nothing. I guess we're making money because, you know, we have the best military equipment in the world. We're selling it to NATO. But you're losing thousands of people a week, Russians and Ukrainians mostly.
As someone who has studied Vladimir Putin for decades, what are your expectations for these talks, Dan?
Yeah, I spent a lot of years trying to see the world through the twisted KGB eyes of Vladimir Putin, and I would encourage our viewers to focus on three things in particular. Putin wants to leave Ukraine vulnerable and weak. He wants Ukraine to make a bad deal that will put pressure on Ukraine's government and leaves Ukraine's population dissatisfied. Putin wants to be able to rearm and potentially attack again down the road in the future, because what Putin wants is to destroy Ukraine and install a puppet regime in Kyiv. Secondly, Putin is definitely going to want to demonstrate that Russia owns primacy over what Russia considers its own sphere of influence, that Russia will dictate terms, even taking land that they have not yet conquered in Donbass. And then third, Russia has always regarded the United States as the main enemy. At Putin's KGB, we are glavny protivnik, the main enemy. And so the last thing Putin wants is for the United States to enhance its status as a global superpower. Putin wants to make it clear that the United States cannot get a good deal on the world stage for Ukraine. And that's going to present challenges for sure.
Sounds like there's a fundamental disagreement with President Zelensky, who says, quote, Ukrainians will not gift their land to the occupier. Does that suggest to you we are nowhere close to a deal?
Well, look, there was no justification for Russia to launch this barbaric war. Ukrainians have fought and died to protect their country's independence. And the idea that Ukraine would give up territory in Donbass, heavily industrialized area on which Ukraine depends for their economic livelihood, that Russia has not even conquered, I just can't imagine that that would be in the realm of the possible. Putin has also demanded in the past that Ukraine never join NATO, that Ukraine not be allowed to maintain a military force. Expect to see maximalist demands from Putin. The other challenge for us is Ukraine kind of needs to be at the table. I don't think we want to be making a deal on their behalf. Putin would like to do that, just like we did at Yalta. But that's not a good look for us in the United States. We need to include Ukraine and Europe. If the Trump administration has been very serious about Europe taking charge of defense in their own backyard, if that's the case, then allow them to play a role in ending this war.
President Trump is continuing his tariffs, trying to cut better deals for the United States. But now Russia and India are talking about a strategic partnership. How concerning is that to you?
Well, they already have one. India imports Russian hydrocarbons as well as Russian munitions. They've been doing this for decades. And India tries to thread the needle as a democracy and also have a productive relationship with the United States. What the Trump administration is saying to India is that's not going to be possible going forward. India is going to have to make a choice about whether to continue to support Russia's war effort or to have a productive and vibrant economic relationship with the United States. So I think that was a good move, and India may have put pressure on Russia in back channels. I think that's something that the Trump team is asking Tulsi Gabbard, the DNI, as well as DCIA Radcliffe for reflections from our intelligence community about how India and Russia are engaging.
So we're nearly out of time, but I want to squeeze in one more because President Trump announced a peace agreement yesterday between Armenia and Azerbaijan. How big of a deal is that?
That's a great deal between two countries that have been at war effectively for decades. And the United States did what we do best. Honest broker, presented an opportunity for economic growth for both teams. We will now build out a corridor between Azerbaijan and Armenia, an enclave between the two countries. And that is a great deal for the United States and for the region. Also demonstrates that Vladimir Putin's Russia is no longer able to handle conflict in their own backyard. It took the United States to solve that. So good on the Trump administration for a diplomatic success.
Dan Hoffman, thank you for sharing your expertise and your analysis today.
Thanks, Mike.
Hey, it's Will Cain. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Cain podcast for full episodes right now.